everybody, my name's Kate, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about themed weddings. So if you are new here, you probably don't know this. Matthew and I had a Lord of the Rings themed wedding. Today I'm going to be talking about how our wedding was lightly themed and talk a little bit about themed weddings in general. So technically every wedding has a theme, even if it's just like a color theme. There are, the Bohemian weddings, the Winter Wonderland weddings, but what about those instances when people take those themes to the extreme? For example, I know people who have had full on every guest that was present cosplay level of dress up, and also I had a friend that her original idea when she got married was she wanted to do it on Halloween and for everyone to wear costumes, which is super cute and quirky and fun. But I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons. So here are the pros of doing a themed wedding. It's very memorable, not just for you, but for your guests as well. And also some themes provide the opportunity to DIY your own stuff, which can be cost efficient. Though that does lead directly into the cons. If you can't DIY the stuff, it can be pretty pricey. Also, say you do have a wedding where everyone's expected to dress up. If some of your guests are unwilling to participate, it can make things kinda awkward. Another thing, this is probably the most important thing. If you are imagining this whimsical, beautiful wedding and you put all this time and energy into it, sometimes you have to understand it may not meet your expectations. If you're expecting the grand hall of Hogwarts with the magic and the candles floating, and you end up with this cabin in the woods with candles tied with fishing line up on the ceiling, sometimes it can come off a little more gimmicky than it can magical. So with that, Matthew and I did have a Lord of the Rings themed wedding, which my mother's biggest concern when it came to this, because my mother did have some concerns. I think I remember her asking the questions, people aren't going to show up dressed up as elves and dwarves, are they? Which is fine if that's the wedding that we wanted to go for, but it wasn't. Her biggest concern was that she didn't want our themed wedding to come off as tacky or inelegant in any way. So when describing it to the wedding planner and to my family and friends, we went with that it was lightly themed. So here is how we lightly themed our wedding. This all started because I wanted to get married outside and Matthew didn't want to wear shoes. Lord of the Rings, the books for Matt, and the movies for me have played a significant role in our childhoods, and it's both something that we really like. So we decided our wedding should be kind of a joining, the same way that it was the joining of the two of our lives, it was the joining of our love for Lord of the Rings, separate but now becoming one. So we were able to have it outside in a forest, lots of flower archways and lights in the trees, lots of fairy twinkle lights. After the sun had gone down, we actually lit a bonfire and had this cool little area where people could hang out by the fire. We had handmade benches, and the ends of the benches actually were tree trunks, so it was very rustic, very outdoorsy. The way that my wedding planner described it, who has never seen the Lord of the Rings movies, was the most that she could equate it to was a Midsummer Night's Dream. We walked on soft grass. It was very nice, so none of us wore shoes. For the ceremony, we did wear shoes afterwards when we were dancing and then for pictures and everything, but when we got married, we didn't have any shoes on. I made flower crowns for all of my bridesmaids, and I also had a flower crown. My bridesmaids carried lanterns instead of bouquets. The attire of the groomsmen was very reminiscent of Hobbit attire, so they wore tweed vests with the button-up shirts and khaki pants that were rolled up to their ankles. I actually wore the Even Star necklace. I walked down the aisle to Concerning Hobbits, which if you don't know what that song is, I don't want to get like YouTube copyright issues, but it's the one that's like do 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 do. I also wore a white cloak that I had up over my head, and then when I walked out where everyone could see me, my father handed me off to my mom. I took the cloak off, handed it to my father, and then my mom walked me down the aisle. On top of the fact that we had signs and decor and banners that I had handmade that were all Hobbit themed. The general idea was to have the ceremony be like a wedding in the Shire, like I would assume Sam and Rosie's wedding was, and the idea for the reception was Bilbo's birthday party that's at the very beginning of the first Lord of the Rings movie, where there's a bonfire and fireworks go off, there's a whole thing with that. Our cupcakes looked like they had moss on top of them, but it was actually like dyed shredded coconut. We had chocolate pine cones that sat on top. Our cake stand, my father-in-law actually carved out himself, and our cake was one of those naked cakes that had succulents everywhere on top of it, and I actually made our cake topper. So yeah, that's how we lightly themed our wedding, in the way of we did everything but cosplay as the characters. That was really like the main thing that we didn't do. And it wasn't really something we wanted to do. We just wanted our wedding to be heavily influenced by our love for this thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this content, make sure you subscribe so that you're notified the next time I post a video. You can also check out my wedding video. It'll be somewhere up here. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!